Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's School Spotlight. I'm Mackenzie. I'm back. If you've been following our series, last week I wasn't on the camera too much, but I'm here again, and I'm so excited to be with you all. I'm going to wait just a few seconds. You guys can see my dog behind me. That's Mito. He loves these live streams. So if you hear him barking, he's just saying hello. All right. So today I'm excited to welcome our special guest. So we're actually here with University of Wisconsin Superior. We're here with my friend Mark and also Pseudo, who is an international student. So really excited to have you both here. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Mackenzie. Good to see you again.
Yeah, this is great. So first of all, Pseudo, I want to know about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? What are you studying?
Sure. Well, I arrived here in the fall of 2017 from Bombay, India. And I initially started off in more of a computer science field, but then I met some great people, some great advisors, and I found out that I was more passionate about business. So I kind of switched to business management, and I am still minoring in math. So it's sort of like a mixture of those two fields that I really like. And that's the kind of flexibility that I got here. So I chose those two fields and absolutely fell in love with this place, with the academics and with the culture here.
That's amazing. I know that's one of the things I always try to stress to international students when they're trying to decide what country they want to study in. I always say, just how flexible the education is in the United States. It's really different than some other countries where, you choose your major and you're married to that major until you graduate. And if you want to switch, then you basically start over. So that's awesome that you are, you have that testimonial about that flexibility. Why did you choose University of Wisconsin Superior? Like, were you looking at other schools, or was this the only school you were looking at? How did you make that decision?
I would say I was looking at different school. I was looking at a bunch of different schools for different portfolios. Like some were huge schools like Michigan Tech and UT Dallas, and there were some schools that were more of University of Wisconsin Superior style. Like they were small. The teacher to student ratios were really good, where they could give you more focus, more attention. And when I got accepted to these schools, I had to make a decision. And the reason why I chose it is because of the smaller campus size. Like, you don't feel like you're just another student. You don't feel like you're a student ID number. They genuinely know your name, they know your story, they care about you, and you can get that personal touch when you come to this campus. So that was one of my prime reasons to come here.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I bet as an international student coming from India, that was really comforting, not feeling overwhelmed, being on a huge
Right.
campus where nobody cares if you show up to class or not, that's the
Exactly.
benefit. That's the benefit of a small school.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, speaking of, what there is to do on campus and that sort of thing, tell me about the experience. Mark, you can jump in too. What's it like when you're on campus? What are the activities you can get involved in?
Well, I'll go off first. I would say if you can't find anything to do on campus, I would say you're lying, because there is literally a club for every person. If you really want to dig into diversity, there's clubs for that. If you want to go into a major specific club, you can go into finance, economics. There's computer science clubs. There's chess club. So anything you like, we have a club for that. And if we don't, then you can easily form one. There's enough funding for the club, so there is a lot of things going on, and you just have to pick and choose what you like to do, and then you can go into it, you can become a part of it, and you can do it. And just speaking from experience, the area is like filled with natural beauty. So even during the pandemic, there's so many state parks that are open for hikes and trails and all that stuff, and we obviously live next to the largest freshwater lake, so you can always go in for a walk or go in for a quick jog. So we always have that going for us.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was going to ask, what do you typically do on the weekends? What's there to do around there? So you go out and hike and that sort of thing. Anything else that you've been doing since the pandemic has started?
I would say one of the advantages of the Twin Ports is the population here. So even now during the pandemic, you can go to a movie theater and you can rent out the whole space for less than $100. So like a bunch of my friends would go and rent out the whole space for a movie screening, and it's $10 a person. It's not expensive at all. So you can still have that experience that you might not have on a bigger campus where there's like 50,000 people.
Right.
So you still have those modern amenities, but you also have those like natural beauties. So if you really don't like people and you're an introvert and just want to go for a hike, you can obviously do that.
That's awesome. If you don't like people. Mark, did you have something you wanted to add about that?
I'll chime in. I know that Sudo doesn't like to toot his own horn, but he's a busy guy. And so he was voted as the student government president. He's been involved in a lot of different student organizations. He led the World Student Association, which is a pretty active club. And so he's also pretty busy on weekends too, I think. But yeah.
I bet. How do you balance it all too? I mean, do you have any tips for incoming students about time management and that sort of thing?
I think it's all about communication. Over the years, I've learned that as long as you communicate to your professors and tell them that you have these commitments, they are quite flexible and they understand and they can cut you some slack. But at the same time, I feel like you need to find that balance between your academic and your social life. So it's all about finding the right mix of things that you like to do. So at the end of the day, it's all about having that communication going.
Yeah. Have you found any creative ways to like squeeze in your studying while you're doing your other activities and that kind of thing? I ask because when I was in university, I think I found a very good balance between like social life and academic life, and I worked, and I had a very busy schedule, and I worked at the rec center. So I worked at the on-campus gym. And so while I was like on my shift, if I was working behind the equipment counter, not many people would go. So I would like start getting in my workout while I was working. So I'd like use the weights that were back there that people could check out, do some lunges. And then when I was off my shift, I would jump on the elliptical, but I'd have like my notebook with me and I'd be studying while I was on the elliptical. So that helped. But what about you? How do you manage that?
Well, I definitely don't run and study. I'd say that. But kind of what you said, I work over at Tech Services for the university, and everyone's so kind and they understand that you're a student first. So between shifts, if you're working and if you don't have customers, you can pull up your homework and you can start doing it while you're punched in. So that's how I do like 80% of my work before I go back home, because once I get back to my place, I just want to rest. So while I work, I'm studying, like you said, and I'm just trying to find those 5 minutes between every interval. Those add up at the end. So
exactly. And for me, one thing I learned that helped me study like in the quickest amount of time possible was all about repetition. So I was very, I had a structure with my notes, how I would take notes in class, and then how I would reduce those notes down. So I would just get the important points and like you said, just squeeze in like a 5-minute quick little study session, and kind of retain as much information as possible. And that's another important thing, for international students, when you're looking at on-campus jobs you can do, it's, if you do have a heavy workload, think about what kind of position you might want to work in. Another thing I did, I was a tutor for the Department of Modern Languages. I was a Spanish language tutor. In the department, they just offered free open tutoring sessions, and I set my schedule. So it was like, no one would sign up ahead of time. People would just walk in, and I had some sessions where no one ever came in. So I'd bring my homework with me or my books and get things done. Mark, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the work opportunities for international students at your campus.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. Every international student who's wanted to work on campus in the last 5 years has been able to find a job. The number one employer is food service. So that's certainly option is always there, but there's, an admissions office and recreation and library and tech services where pseudo works. And so, a little bit of effort, students can find something. And so that's, if they work 15 hours a week for a year, that's about $4,000 for the year you can put toward your studies. So that's a pretty cool opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And let's be clear here, most students don't use the funds that they make during their on-campus job for their studies. It usually funds the weekends, but hey, whatever they have to tell their parents, they can make money.
Very true.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, I have another question. I know you kind of touched on this, Pseudo, but I think it's really important to point out, what does it feel like when you're walking around campus as an international student? What do you see? What do you feel? Does it feel big? Does it feel small? Welcoming? Do people smile? What's it like on a day-to-day basis when you're walking around?
Well, I came from a private boarding school, so it was tiny, it was strict, it was very disciplined. So to me, this university was quite big, but everyone's so welcoming. And they want to learn more about you, where you come from. The orientation is great. And I would say within the first week of getting here, you pretty much know where everything is located. That's the good thing about the campus. And then there is services available for everything. That's what I like about this campus. When I first came here, I didn't have a professional resume and all of that stuff. So I just popped into one of our services that's offered to us for free. And they made a quick resume. And with that resume, I was able to secure jobs at Johns Hopkins and these big other firms and stuff like that. And Mark was actually one of my references for pretty much every job I've applied for.
That's amazing.
So there is definitely a lot of opportunities for international students on campus. They offer you a lot of different job opportunities. Right now, I work for Residence Life, sort of like a hall manager, which is kind of like a fancier RA. So I never thought 3 years ago that I would be supervising 30 people and catching them smoke weed and stuff like that. So that's an aspect of education I never thought I would learn.
And that's a skill set that you never knew you needed, but now you have it. That's great.
Exactly. So through the campus, I've learned a lot. I've learned how to fundraise. I've learned how to manage a team of people effectively. I've learned how to manage time and just communicate effectively and efficiently to get the things done. So,
that's incredible. Awesome. Well, now switching gears a little bit, Mark, I want to know about kind of the programs, the areas of study. I know Pseudo is involved in business and was involved in computer science, but what are some of the other top superstar programs you have?
Well, 50% of our international students are in the School of Business and Economics. So business, international business, finance, marketing, management, those are all strong. Biology, chemistry, I think are a couple of good programs I'd point out. Transportation and logistics management and supply chain management are two programs that I would highlight. And part of it is we're right next to Lake Superior. And so we have ships coming in from around the world, pipelines, trains, trucking, 3 airports. And so we have a lot of companies that need people to manage all of the movement of products and resources. And so that really is one that we've been doing for quite some time. And so that's one of our distinct programs I would highlight.
That's really cool. Sorry, guys, if you start to hear some barks in the background. My dog decided it's time to play. So apologies about that. When it comes to kind of job outcomes and that sort of thing, what resources are in place for students, after their bachelor's degree, after their master's degree? How do you help them move forward?
Right. Well, I mean, as Pseudo mentioned, the career services office that helped him with his resume, that's a place that it's a strong office, and we don't want people or students going to that office in their 4th year. We actually really want them going in their 1st year or 2nd year and start to think about what they're going to be doing afterwards and what kind of, and talking about what they want to do and what they can do in school to achieve those goals. And so they're helping. Then they have a mock interview system. They've got they hold job fairs here. that then actually, along with a couple other universities in the area, so then ended up being a really big job fairs that are pretty getting employers from the whole region. And then students, even after they leave, they can always use the services from the Career Services Office. So, I mentioned about 16 of our academic programs have 100% job placement rate. And
that's very impressive.
Yeah. So what students do after when they're done, I mean, that's why we're here. That's probably the most important thing we're doing.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, that's a great outcome. That's a great opportunity. You know, students, not all schools have these kinds of statistics when it comes to employment post graduation. So that's awesome. And do many of your students, do they end up getting employed from internships, or how does that process happen?
Yep, the majority of our students are doing an internship, and through CPT, that kind of a program that all international students can do in the U.S. And so we certainly encourage students to do it. We support them in the process, both in the international office and in their advisors in the Career Services Office. So yeah, that's a big part. What was the internship you did, Pseudo?
So I worked 2 summers ago at Johns Hopkins as sort of a business analyst. And actually, the way it's created is that the catalogs of your graduation, they encourage you to apply for an internship or apply for a research. So you by the time you graduate, you have an undergraduate research or you have a really valuable internship, so that once you're done graduating and once you're applying to the jobs, those 2 things are really helpful for you to secure that position.
100%. So definitely, students, if that opportunity is presented to you, take it. You don't want to let that pass by. If it's not a requirement of your major, but you still have the opportunity to do it, because this is the kind of thing that can help you secure a job afterwards, or just have great references to use later on. So there's only benefits for doing that if you have the time to handle it. Now, some students are very focused on rankings, that kind of thing. Mark, are there any rankings that students should be aware of about UW Superior?
Yeah, I mean, in the maybe the thing to point to the most is just the University of Wisconsin system is one of the, which we're a part of. There's 13 campuses, and it is one of the largest and strongest public university systems in the country. And so just being a part of that, you're getting quality. I'd say in the rankings, we often are around in the middle of our ranking of our category. And so it's a good, solid, location or not location, but ranking. So
awesome. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, some students, they always ask about those things, but students, I want to take advantage of this as well to stress that ranking is not everything. And when you are looking at rankings, it's important to look at the right type of ranking. So, look at a ranking about a specific program, or if you see a school has a ranking, do some investigation about what that means. If it's, best Midwest university or best Midwest public university, you can look into that and see what that means and if it's important to you or not. All right, so I want to move on to talk about kind of the nitty-gritty stuff that parents care about, which is costs, scholarships. I know you guys do offer some great scholarships, which is awesome for being part of a public school system. So tell me about those opportunities, Mark.
Sure. Yep. So the non-resident or out-of-state tuition that we charge is about $16,000 for the year. However, 90% of our international students get a scholarship of between $5,300 and $7,200 per year. And so that really helps make it affordable. And so that brings tuition and fees down to a little less than $9,000 to a little less than $11,000 per year. You add in room and meals, and it's about $15,500 to $17,500 per year. And those are merit-based scholarships. The majority of our students who are admitted have a 3.0 GPA or higher. With a 2.9 or higher, students can get that non-resident tuition scholarship.
That's awesome. Now, do you guys require SAT, anything like that? Any of those test scores?
Not the SAT or ACT, but we do require the proof of English proficiency. So TOEFL or IELTS or Duolingo, we accept all of those.
Okay, wonderful. When it comes to the admissions process, do you require anything extra as far as interviews, reference letters, anything like that?
We do. What we require is an online application, and there's a written statement as a part of that. We don't have an application fee now, which is makes the process a little easier. And then transcript, and then the test score, and that with that, we can make a decision. And we don't have an interview requirement. No.
Incredible. So there's no excuse not to apply, basically.
Exactly.
That's what I'm hearing. All right, guys. Now, for our viewers, if anyone's watching this, if you have any questions for Mark or Pseudo, feel free to write them in the comments section. They'd be happy to answer questions, I assume. I'm just offering that on their behalf. I'm assuming you guys are okay with that.
Of course.
But while we're waiting for some questions to roll in, any final thoughts? Anything you'd like to say about Wisconsin Superior or Pseudo? Anything you'd like to say to other international students?
I'd definitely say that it is a scary thought of leaving your home and traveling all this way just to get an education, but it is worth it. You learn the traditions of the people here, you understand the culture, you understand the way they speak to each other, they treat each other. And I think when you come here, after spending a few weeks, you already have a sense of belonging. They treat you so nicely that you really believe that you're cared for, and they'll go above and beyond to make sure that your stay here is absolutely stunning. So it is sort of like a home away from home experience. So that's what I really like about it.
That's awesome. Mark, what about you? Any final thoughts?
Well, Mackenzie, I get asked a lot from families and parents about safety is one thing, and I will point that out and say looking for a place that's safe and friendly. And I talk to students who want a place that's not small and boring, and it's that nice mix of small enough to be safe and friendly, but big enough that there's 3 universities, 20,000 university students. There's a lot of hotels in the area because we're right next to Lake Superior, and so you have that location. We work very hard to keep it affordable. And just being, and having those quality programs on campus, I think I would say affordable, great location, ton of support, great place to live and study.
Awesome. Now, we don't have any questions coming in from viewers, but I actually do have one final question for you, Pseudo, which I think people are going to be interested in. Coming from India, how was the transition for you with like weather? And going from a place like India that's so populated and so busy and noisy, and there's always something going on. How was that kind of culture shock experience for you?
I would say that first week of coming here was the hardest because I come from Bombay. There's 18 million people in that city. It's sort of like New York where there's always people. And I came here and I thought there was a national holiday because I saw no one on the roads. So I asked my orientation leader like what was going on, and she said it's a normal day here. So
was it a Sunday?
It was a Saturday, I remember.
Okay. I was going to say, if it's a Sunday, usually a lot of towns in the US are very quiet on Sundays.
Right. So I just had to get used to it. And then there were like tiny things. I had to get used to the food here, and small things such as filling your own gas. That was different for me. Eating dinner at like 6 in the evening. That was a culture shock. So those small things made a difference, but I'm used to the weather now. I barely get sick. So I've really gotten acclimated to the weather, and actually it's the opposite. When I go back home, I get a little bit more sick because of the humidity. So yeah, I've been more of a Wisconsinite than more of a Bombay person.
Nice. Oh, that's so interesting. And what about food? I mean, what's your favorite? People always ask, like people who haven't been to the US, they ask like, what's like American food like? in the US, we don't really have like our own style of food. I believe we kind of fry everything. I guess that's kind of our style of food.
Yeah.
So how would you describe it? What's your favorite thing, and how would you describe American food to people who have never been to the US?
I would say burgers. Everything is huge. Like all the sizes are huge, and there's sweet in everything.
There you go.
Yeah, but there's still so many options around campus. So I always every weekend I have my own relaxing day where I just order food. It's either Chinese or pizza or Italian. I love seafood, so we have some good seafood places around the area. So you can always pick and choose. And there's an Indian restaurant too nearby. So if I ever miss home, I can always go over there.
That's nice. Yeah, that's one thing too I think students should be aware of. On most campuses, especially campuses that do have international students, you can typically find restaurants that serve food that may not be exactly like what you would get at home, but at least can kind of help fill that craving you have if you're a little bit homesick. So that's good to point out as well. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for your time. We are going to wrap up now, but I really appreciate you both speaking to us about the University of Wisconsin Superior. Students, for you that are watching, I'm going to share my screen really quickly so you can see how to find out more information about University of Wisconsin Superior. Let me stretch my screen out a little bit. All right, so if you just go to applywave.com, you can click on the bachelor's degree tab because that's where you'll find the University of Wisconsin Superior. You can just start typing it in here. You'll see this option. Make sure you click on the Superior option, click search. And this is where you'll get to see the profile. You can click on the name or click on read more, and you'll be able to see more information about the school, admissions requirements, all the programs available, where they're at on the map. I mean, look at this location. You're kind of, surrounded by this water, which is really cool. And then you can look at some of the beautiful campus images to get a feel for what it's like to be on campus and what the facilities look like. So again, students, now you know who's behind the screen. It's me, it's Mark, it's Pseudo. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I know we're all here to support you in your journey of studying abroad. So again, Mark, Pseudo, thank you so much for joining us today.
Awesome. Thank you, Mackenzie.
Bye, guys.
Bye.